You don't pay, you don't play. You count. Signing up for Obamacare is very different than paying up for Obamacare. And Aetna is now saying that of the 720,000 people who did sign up for exchange coverage, 600,000 have actually paid, which tells me the 120,000 who didn't can't be counted as enrollees. This is something that we've been following for quite some time, that if you don't really have a paid ticket, you don't really have a shirt. And we as taxpayers are losing our shirts. Applying the rule that some of these insurance companies have, in Aetna's case, that maybe 30% are not paying. Take the administration's 8 million enrollee number and knock 30% off that, right? To the Wall Street Journal's James Freeman on how this is adding up or not adding up. The Fox Biz All-Star is back with us as well. What are we really looking at here?
Well, we're looking, first of all, we're realizing that this triumph that the president proclaimed in the spring, 8 million people have signed up, look, it's a success, it's never going away, is not what it appeared. Aetna saying these numbers are going to go down even further. Basically, this is
the numbers of paying
the numbers
customers.
of paid enrolled customers.
Why are they saying that, by the way? The subsidies aren't measured?
Well, I think you're like a lot of big insurers. They're looking at premiums going up. That's going to dissuade more customers. And among those people who don't get government subsidies, this is not a very appealing deal. You add the fact that there are a lot of ways to avoid getting penalized for not buying insurance. And you have a big part of that uninsured population that does not want Obamacare.
If you're right, and I never have any reason to doubt you, then we have to rethink everything we've been told. Because we already have subsidies being called into legal question. We have a lot of people who enrolled who didn't maybe enroll honestly. So we've got a big mess on our hands.
Yeah, you mentioned the legal challenge. If they knock the federal subsidies out of exchanges in 36 states, again, most people who don't get subsidies are not that interested in Obamacare. You're talking about several million more people probably dropping out of the system. Also, as we go forward, the mandates get tougher, the costs go up. As we go forward, insurance companies don't get the same bailouts. These are called risk corridors if they get more expensive patients than they thought. So all of these things are going to drive costs up and patients out of the system if they can get out.
Hadley, we already know that a lot of the folks who are enrolling are not the young, healthy folks we wanted. They're the guys like, you know, old farts like me who are very expensive drain on the system, and even my own kids hate me. So that is not a good mathematical formula going forward, right?
Right. Well, part of the rules of Obamacare were designed to take some of the risk element out of insurance pricing. And, of course, for young people who are healthy, the risk for that type of healthcare customer is very low. So their pricing in a free market healthcare system would be very low. But you take some of the rules in Obamacare, for example, the 1-to-3 ratio that requires my premium to be as high as 1/3 of the highest premium in any given pool. As a young customer, I have to pay at least 1/3 of the highest price for the oldest customer. That's still not a good deal, still not reflective of the risk that so many young people pose to the system, which is very low. So again, you know, we're not seeing the right shape of pools, and we're also here still debating the size of the pools, still debating the size of the enrollment. I would caution pundits and analysts on both the right and the left not to depend so strongly on the enrollment figures as the bar of success for Obamacare or the bar of failure, when really this law calls so much into question. We ought to be evaluating not just how many enrollees there are, but are they satisfied with the product? Are they better off with the type of insurance they have now? What kind of quality? Are the networks broad enough to provide for the amount of patients who are in the network? So there's a lot of questions that are still out there that we'll continue to monitor as the law continues to be implemented.
I didn't understand what you said, but I'm outraged. I'm kidding. But actually, where does this go? Because it can't financially support itself if it keeps going this way. You know, obviously, to James' point, we can keep pushing this forward and delaying costs, penalties, subsidies, etc. But it is not a math that supports itself.
No, and I think this was peddled in a way that said, you know, it was free health care. And even the New York Times, Neil, last week in a piece came out and said, you know, Obamacare coverage, those that have enrolled, they don't know how to navigate through it. And the costs are much higher than they thought and what they predicted. So when they're looking at this now, these are people who enrolled and bought into this system, and they're realizing, I don't even know what I signed up for, and I can't afford it. So what happens next? And, you know, as subsidies are being, you know, taken into legal question, as we had mentioned previously. And as Hadley said, this was a bad deal for millennials. So not as many signed up as were anticipated,
well, that was the
but they did
central
get close
premise
to the
right
number.
there. It's a bad deal for millennials, bad deal for folks here. They're rejecting it. That's pretty clear.
It's too expensive. They can't afford it. This is not a plan for the cheap. You also got to wonder, so the millennials aren't signing up, but you also got to wonder about Aetna and Cigna, these big insurers. What's the incentive for them to keep being a part of this? Their margins
only this could
on
make
this
you
plan
creepily side with the insurance companies.
Well, you're right, because their margins are so much smaller on this.
Because it's in the battle of creeps. It's like, who creeps you out less?
But we're also seeing a complete delay in coverage,
they deserve a lot of blame
insurance.
because they're part of the reason we got this law. I think if the industry
and they got a lot of the benefits they wanted,
we would be in a better situation. But, you know, these enrollment numbers are important because you're shrinking the potential political coalition for it, and you're shrinking the pain if you repeal it. So there's a reason people focus on these numbers. But
train has left the station.
I think the big point is that this didn't even solve the uninsured problem. You know, 30 million uninsured, a small fraction.
Yeah, in the end, we're still going to have that.
The consumer's going to pay.
Yeah. All right. In the meantime, coming up, they say karma's a bitch. Corporate karma can be even worse. That is what happens when the president keeps bashing companies. Pretty soon, the bosses aren't the ones with the problem. The guy calling them a problem is. Carly Fiorina on the public's sudden 180 on corporate America.